Hey,
Everyone,
today we're diving into another terrifying case. Make sure to support my channel by hitting that subscribe button and turning on notifications. Addiction is often associated with destructive behaviors, driven by an attempt to escape reality by altering one's state of mind. There are two main types of addiction, chemical and non-chemical. The first category includes cases where individuals develop an unhealthy dependence on certain substances, such as alcohol, controlled substances, or prescription medications. This type of dependency typically develops gradually, influenced by various factors such as family issues, troubled relationships, psychological disorders, or emotional trauma. The story of a young model, beauty queen, and medical school graduate turned out to be far more complicated than it initially seemed. The title holder of Miss Maryland was found unresponsive at her boyfriend's home, and from the very beginning, it was apparent that an overdose of controlled substances was the cause of her passing. However, this case was far from straightforward. As it turned out, the circumstances surrounding her tragic fate raised numerous questions. Her family had to take matters into their own hands and push for an investigation, as law enforcement showed little urgency, and the person responsible for what happened could have remained free. Sarah Jane Harris was born on December 5, 1996 in Rockville, Montgomery County, Maryland. She was the youngest of four siblings in the loving and close-knit family of Tina Lynn and Mark Harris. She grew up alongside her older sisters, Victoria and Rachel, and her brother Christopher. From an early age, Sarah was independent and highly ambitious. She excelled in school, showing a special interest in biology and anatomy. As a teenager, she firmly decided to pursue a career in medicine. Her teachers regarded her as a true prodigy and predicted a bright future for her. Languages also came naturally to her. She quickly mastered both French and Spanish and could speak them fluently. Determined to be self-sufficient, Harris got her first job at 14, working as a promotional representative at a large local toy store. She entertained young shoppers by dressing up as Disney princesses and other fairy tale characters. It was there that a modeling scout noticed the striking young girl and invited her to try her hand at modeling. She agreed, and thus her career in the fashion industry began. Sarah possessed a stunning appearance and a flawless figure. She regularly received offers for photo shoots and even signed several advertising contracts. Despite her growing success in modeling, she never abandoned her dream of becoming a doctor. She continued studying diligently, researching colleges and universities to further her education. Friends and acquaintances described Sarah as sociable, cheerful, and full of life. She had a wide range of interests, including painting, music, traveling, and dancing. She was admired by many but remained focused on her studies and work, rarely going on dates. In 2020, at the age of 23, Harris won her state's beauty pageant, earning the title and crown of Miss Maryland. By the time Sarah was finishing university, she had everything: a sharp mind, stunning looks, and a promising career ahead of her. She had just secured an internship at a prestigious private dental clinic, a dream opportunity for any aspiring medical professional. To the outside world, she seemed unstoppable. But as the saying goes, appearances can be deceiving. Her older sister Rachel had always been her closest confidant. Later, when the truth came to light, Rachel revealed details that no one in Sarah's life had ever suspected, secrets buried beneath the surface of a seemingly perfect life. It all began when Sarah was just 14. Around the time she got her first job and started earning her own money, she also started experimenting. At first, with over-the-counter medications from the family's medicine cabinet. Alone in her room, she would mix them in high doses, chasing sensations that felt new and exhilarating, but soon that wasn't enough. She found herself drawn to an older crowd, people who introduced her to stronger prescription drugs. What started as innocent curiosity quickly spiraled into something far more dangerous. By the time she turned 16, Sarah was battling crippling anxiety, relentless insomnia, and recurring nightmares. Depression wrapped around her like an unseen shadow. Yet, despite everything, she excelled in school. She worked hard, kept her grades up, and fooled everyone except one of her sisters, who discovered the truth. But instead of raising the alarm, she swore to keep Sarah's secret, a mistake that, years later, would prove to be devastating. By the time Sarah turned 18, her family could no longer ignore the drastic shifts in her behavior. One moment, she would be laughing uncontrollably. The next, she would dissolve into tears or lash out in anger. It was like watching a storm brew inside her, unpredictable and unsettling. Her mother, deeply concerned but unaware of the real issue, insisted she see a psychiatrist. After a series of evaluations, Sarah was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. The doctors prescribed medication to stabilize her condition, and for a while, she followed their recommendations. But there was one thing she didn't stop: her reliance on the stronger substances that had become her secret escape. Then came 2018. Sarah, now a college student, attended a rock music festival in a neighboring state with a group of friends. That's where she met Henry Peterson. There was something magnetic about him. A musician, 7 years older, charismatic and free-spirited. The chemistry between them was instant, and by the end of the festival they had exchanged numbers, promising to keep in touch. Despite her striking beauty and popularity, Sarah had never been in a serious relationship before. But Henry? He was different. He understood her, made her feel safe. Their connection deepened, and soon he became her first great love. But love is rarely simple. Henry was always on the road with his band, traveling across the country. Sarah, tied to her studies, couldn't leave. The 10-hour distance between them began to take its toll. They talked for hours on the phone, made plans for a future together, even discussed starting a family. But reality had other plans. After nearly a year and a half, Henry made the difficult decision to end the relationship. It wasn't because he didn't love her, he did. But Sarah's erratic mood swings and growing dependency worried him. He couldn't be there for her the way she needed. They stayed in touch. Whenever she needed him, he picked up the phone. But the cracks in Sarah's world were widening. Then, in 2020, Sarah visited a private dental clinic to have her wisdom teeth removed. The procedure was complicated, requiring multiple appointments. She was lucky. Her doctor was none other than Dr. James Ryan, the clinic's owner. Getting an appointment with him was nearly impossible. Yet there she was, under his care. Ryan was different from other doctors. He wasn't just skilled, he was attentive, caring, charming. Even after her procedure, he called her personally to check on her recovery, asked how she was feeling, reminded her of follow-ups. Sarah trusted him. She respected him. During one of their conversations, she casually mentioned that she was looking for an internship. Without hesitation, Ryan offered her a part-time assistant position at his clinic. It was the kind of opportunity most students could only dream of. After some thought, she accepted. But what started as a professional relationship soon blurred into something else. Ryan, nearly twice her age, began showering her with compliments, finding excuses to spend time with her, inviting her out. At first, she ignored it. He was her boss, after all. But as time went on, his interest in her became harder to ignore. And then, something happened that changed everything. Sarah, already walking a fine line between control and chaos, was about to be pulled into a dangerous game, one she never saw coming. And the worst part? She had no idea how it would end. Within just a few months, their professional relationship took an unexpected turn, evolving into something far more personal. By early 2021, Dr. James Ryan and Sarah had moved in together, settling into his luxurious home. At the time, Dr. Ryan was 47 years old, a well-established and financially secure man. He was divorced, with 3 adult children from his previous marriage and a young son from a brief relationship with a former employee at his clinic. Despite his past, he had built a reputation as a generous and charming individual, one who knew how to win people over with grand gestures and lavish gifts. His dental practice was one of the most prestigious in Montgomery County, known not just for top-tier care but also for pioneering the latest technology in cosmetic dentistry. The clinic catered to a high-end clientele, charging premium prices that patients were more than willing to pay for excellence. When Sarah began dating Dr. Ryan, her friends envied her. She appeared to have won the jackpot: exotic vacations, designer gifts, and even a high-end car, all courtesy of James. On top of that, she barely had to work. Though she continued receiving a paycheck from the clinic, she spent less and less time there, indulging in the luxury-filled life she had stepped into. But then, tragedy struck, and with it came a series of shocking revelations no one saw coming. On January 26, 2022, just as dawn was breaking, a frantic 911 call shattered the silence. A distressed man's voice, filled with desperation, reported that his girlfriend was unresponsive and had likely suffered an overdose. "I tried CPR, I did everything I could," the caller pleaded, his voice shaking. It was Dr. James Ryan. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but it was too late. Sarah had been dead for hours. Her frail body lay on the living room floor, no visible wounds or signs of struggle. James, in tears, repeated the same explanation: an overdose. But how? That was the question that would unravel a dark and twisted mystery. Investigators immediately considered 3 possibilities: suicide, an accidental overdose, or foul play. The third option was quickly dismissed. There were no injuries, no evidence of violence. Everything pointed to Sarah having taken a lethal dose of powerful substances on her own. James told investigators that the night before, they had stayed up late watching a movie. Around midnight, Sarah mentioned she had work in the morning and needed to get some sleep. He went upstairs to bed, but she decided to finish the film. At 5:30 a.m., James woke up and noticed Sarah had never come to bed. Concerned, he went downstairs. That's when he saw her, lying lifeless on the floor beside the couch. Her lips had turned pale. A thick white foam oozed from her mouth. His instincts as a medical professional kicked in. He rolled her onto her side, cleared her airway, and started CPR. For 15 minutes, he fought to bring her back. Desperate chest compressions, frantic mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. But nothing worked. Realizing he had no hope left, he picked up the phone and dialed 911. According to James, Sarah had secretly been taking medications from the clinic for personal use. He admitted he had known about it, but chose not to report her, fearing legal trouble. He speculated that she had taken a large dose of a powerful anesthetic, possibly mixing it with other medications, leading to heart failure. But something didn't add up. Sarah had everything: a perfect life, a wealthy and caring partner, and a future filled with luxury. Why would she risk it all? And if it truly was an accident, how did she get access to such potent drugs? As investigators dug deeper, unsettling details began to emerge, and soon the case that seemed so open and shut would take a turn no one expected. James swore he had done everything in his power to help Sarah break free from her dependency. He administered IV drips at home, trying to flush out the toxins in her system, reducing the effects of intoxication while keeping her hydrated. He searched for specialists who could guide her toward rehabilitation, all while ensuring the matter remained private. To the outside world, he was a devoted partner, willing to go to any lengths to save the woman he loved. But Ryan told a different story. He claimed he had discovered Sarah's addiction only after she moved in with him. One evening, he had walked into their bedroom, completely unprepared for what he was about to witness. Sarah, trembling hands gripping a syringe, injecting something into her own vein. The shock was overwhelming. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with shame and exhaustion. That night, she finally broke her silence. She had struggled with bipolar disorder, anxiety, and depression since she was a teenager, she confessed. Medications had been her lifeline, the only thing keeping her from spiraling into a complete breakdown. She wasn't proud of her dependency, but without it, she felt like she was drowning.
Ryan's statement seemed convincing. The toxicology reports backed him up. Sarah's death had been the result of a lethal combination of potent substances. The autopsy revealed no external injuries or signs of foul play, but her body told a different tale. Her veins bore the unmistakable scars of long-term intravenous use, and at just 83 pounds, she was severely underweight, frail, as if life itself had been slipping away from her for months. That morning, Sarah's mother, Tina, was informed of her daughter's tragic passing. But before the investigator could even finish explaining James Ryan's account of events, she cut him off. She didn't believe a single word of it. From the very start, Tina had sensed something was wrong about James. There was something about him that unsettled her, something that felt dangerous. Now, overcome with grief, she was certain of it. James wasn't just involved in Sarah's downward spiral. He was the one who had orchestrated it. Tina's version of events painted a chilling picture. 2 years ago, Sarah had first met James when she sought treatment at his clinic for a dental issue. A simple wisdom tooth extraction had led to something far more insidious. From the very first appointment, James had shown a special interest in her, not just as a patient, but as a woman. He called her frequently, sent messages, and made sure she knew he was attracted to her. When he found out she was looking for an internship, he swooped in, offering her a position at his clinic with a generous salary and the opportunity to work directly under his supervision. She had accepted, excited about the opportunity. But Tina had a bad feeling about it. She tried to warn her daughter, but Sarah dismissed her concerns, insisting that their relationship was purely professional. But that wasn't the truth. Their professional relationship soon evolved into a close friendship, one that Sarah continued to insist was strictly platonic. Then, on New Year's Eve 2021, James took things to the next level. He invited her to a luxurious restaurant, where he surprised her with an extravagant diamond ring. That night, he confessed his love, asked her to be his partner, and suggested they move in together. Sarah hesitated, but only for a moment. James had already showered her with lavish gifts before, but this was the first time he had openly expressed his feelings. Maybe it was the champagne. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe it was something else entirely. But whatever it was, she said yes. A month later, she moved in with him. And just like that, her life was no longer her own. James didn't just cover her personal expenses. He took care of her family, too. He paid for vacations, extravagant gifts, and anything else they desired. His generosity had lulled everyone into a false sense of security. But Tina saw it for what it was: control. Then things took a darker turn. James discovered Sarah's dependency on controlled substances when medications started disappearing from his clinic. When he finally caught her taking them, he didn't report her. He didn't get her help. He let it slide. And then, according to Tina, he took it even further. She was convinced that James had been the one to introduce Sarah to injectable substances with narcotic effects. He had watched her fall, and instead of pulling her back up, he had pushed her deeper into the abyss. And then there was Hawaii. Tina recalled an eerie conversation from a trip they had taken together. One evening, after drinking too much, James let something slip, something that sent a chill down her spine. He told her that he had first seen Sarah years ago, when she was just a child. He had been at a toy store with his own children when he spotted her, dressed as a princess. She had been only 15 years old, and even then he had been captivated by her beauty. Tina never forgot those words. And now, looking back, they made her sick to her stomach. James claimed he had tried to save Sarah, but Tina was convinced he had stolen her daughter's life long before the night she died. Now, the only question that remained was, would the truth ever come out? Tina had always been wary of Dr. James Ryan. From the moment her daughter, Sarah, got involved with him, she sensed something was off. According to Tina, Ryan had been obsessed with Sarah, controlling, possessive, and unwilling to let her go. But when tragedy struck, the authorities failed to see what Sarah's family saw. Investigators conducted only a cursory walk through James Ryan's home, barely scratching the surface of what truly went on behind those doors. The evidence they did find seemed to align with Ryan's version of events. Prescription medications were scattered throughout Sarah's belongings, her purse, her bedside drawer, even her car. Alongside them were discarded syringe wrappers, tourniquets, and 4 solution bottles, reinforcing the assumption that she had been using substances for an extended period. The final, damning discovery: empty vials and ampoules found beside Sarah's lifeless body. The substances inside them were later detected in her system, leading investigators to conclude that she had administered them herself in a final, tragic act. And then there was the text message. In her final hours, Sarah had messaged her former boyfriend, Henry. She confided in him about her worsening depression, hinting an irreversible decision. For the authorities, this was enough. No crime scene designation, no criminal charges, no further investigation. James Ryan walked free. But Sarah's family refused to accept it. They knew there was more to the story. Determined to find the truth, Sarah's mother and sister took matters into their own hands. Tina returned to police, providing a chilling testimony. Sarah had changed drastically after moving in with Ryan. By the summer of 2021, she was unrecognizable, frail, withdrawn, and eerily quiet. A family vacation to Florida that October only deepened Tina's concerns. Despite the warm weather, Sarah insisted on wearing long sleeves. The reason? Tina would soon find out. On December 13th, everything unraveled. Sarah called her mother in a dazed state, her words barely coherent. Alarmed, Tina rushed to Ryan's house, only to find her daughter barely conscious. Then she saw the truth: marks on Sarah's arms, empty vials scattered across the floor, and an enforced stand looming beside her. Tina wanted to take her daughter home, but Sarah refused. "James is helping me," she insisted, her voice weak. "I need to stay." That was the last time Tina saw her daughter alive. After Sarah's tragic passing, her family searched for answers. They retrieved her phone and laptop, uncovering messages that painted a far darker picture than the police had assumed. The texts between Sarah and James Ryan were damning. Conversations about powerful anesthetics and tranquilizers, controlled substances being supplied at her request. The evidence was clear. James had been feeding her addiction, keeping her dependent, ensuring she wouldn't leave him. For the last 6 months of her life, Sarah had barely been working at the clinic. James kept her hidden, supplied her with everything she needed, both financially and pharmaceutically. Sarah's sister printed out every incriminating message, attaching them to the photographs their mother had taken of Ryan's home. This time, when they approached the authorities, they could no longer be ignored. The case was reopened, and this time the truth came out. Dr. James Ryan had been supplying Sarah with prescription drugs illegally. He had ignored her declining state. He had kept her hidden rather than getting her help. On March 22nd, he was arrested. He insisted he was trying to help her. He claimed he had everything under control. But on that fateful night, he had done nothing. And because of that, Sarah had died. On August 25th, 2023, James Ryan was convicted of second-degree homicide and unlawful possession of controlled substances. The court determined that he had knowingly contributed to Sarah's death. His sentence: 45 years in prison with no possibility of parole for 30 years. Justice at last. But for Sarah's family, it had come far too late.
This was today's true story. Our aim is for people to learn from such incidents and strive to improve society. Do let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you liked this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you.